If you guys have been around the channel any amount of time, you know that I love unique Japanese lures. And this particular lure that I'm about to show you is one that I've probably owned longer than most, but it's one that I just have not wanted to talk about at all on this channel. And today I'm breaking that silence, and that is the Jackall Riser 007. This little topwater bait may not look like much, but it is an absolute bass killer. And today I want to talk about it, as well as why some pros are keeping this bait secret. So stay tuned, it's gonna be a good one. This video is brought to you by the Deep Dive app. The Deep Dive app is an app you can download on your phone, and it helps you to figure out the bass on your body of water a lot quicker. Once you get to the lake that you are fishing, you can select that lake on the app, and it's going to bring in the current weather conditions. And then you can actually input data like water temperature, water clarity, whether you're fishing around vegetation or whether you're in a windy or protected area. And once you do this, the app is going to spit out lures and strategies that you can use to attack the body of water that you are fishing. It really cuts down on the amount of time it takes to find fish. And if you guys want to download this app, there is an absolute free version and there's a paid version. I'm gonna leave a link down below in the description for the Deep Dive app. Download it today.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Now, the Jackall Riser bait is actually a very unique bait. It's actually a sinking topwater bait. And if you look at the front end of this bait, it has this bill. And a lot of times when we think of bills on lures, we think about crankbaits that help those lures to dive. This bill actually helps this lure to stay on top of the water. As you can see, it's actually angled upwards, which keeps this lure on the surface when you start the retrieve. The reason that I picked up this lure years ago was because me and my best friend were watching our Japanese fishing videos that we love so much, and we saw this on several different videos. And the way that this bait will skip across the top of the water, it really looks like a very small minnow. And I have seen on so many different lakes across the nation, up north, down south, that there are times of the year, especially in summer, late summer, where the bass are feeding on very small bait fish. This could be young of the year shad, but it also could be different minnows that we have, especially in northern waters. Now, the crazy thing is that when bass are feeding on these very small bait fish, it is extremely hard to catch them. You may see them blowing up on these tiny minnows, and you cast a topwater over there and you simply cannot get bit. And I found that the Jackall Riser will get bit when no other topwater will get bit. And it's because it really mimics that small minnow, that small bait fish so well. The way that it skips across the water, if you've ever seen a bass chasing a minnow, it looks exactly like that. And the bass will absolutely go bonkers over this bait. The other thing that's interesting about this bait is the speed at which you fish it. You can fish it extremely fast, and I really feel like it causes a reaction strike from a bass that otherwise will not bite anything else. Because this bait just comes skipping across the water extremely fast, they just have to go up there and grab it. It's just a reaction strike. Now, about a year after I first bought these baits, first started catching fish on these baits, I actually saw that Scott Martin was using this exact same bait in a Bassmaster Open on Lake Hartwell. He kept it really hush-hush. I don't think he ever even talked about the bait. And he was actually able to get a top 10 out of nearly 200 boats using the Jackall Riser. So him staying a little hush-hush about it just goes to show you how effective this bait can be. Now, this is not a topwater that's going to replace other topwaters. It has a very specific situation where when you are fishing clear water, for those fish that are eating really small bait fish or really fast bait fish like blueback herring, that is when you want to pick up the Jackall Riser. Now, I really believe this setup for this bait to maximize this lure's potential is critical. And you're going to want to fish it on a spinning rod and reel because it's a very light lure, although it casts extremely well with the spinning rod. Now, the rod that I have found that is perfect is a 7-foot 6-inch medium light rod. And the reason that I like that longer rod, 7 foot 6 inches, is to basically be able to bomb this bait out a far, far ways. I have fished this bait up in the north for smallmouth across big grass flats and rock flats, and being able to really bomb this bait out there will greatly help you to catch a lot more fish. Now, medium light is also a key because, again, this is a small lure. The hooks that come on this bait are number 10s. That is a very small treble hook. Now, I like a 2500 series spinning reel like this Tatula LT, and I'm gonna use 10-pound test braid to an 8-pound test fluorocarbon leader. And you could fish this bait on straight braid, but the thing is if you fish it on that really light braid, you're gonna have times where that braid gets wrapped around these treble hooks, and if you're making a long bomb cast, that bait's gonna get fouled up a ways away from the boat, and that is not a good thing. And I really like a short fluorocarbon leader, and you could use fluorocarbon, you could use monofilament, it doesn't really matter because the speed at which you bring this bait, it's going to stay on the top of the surface. So the leader length that I start out with is typically about 3 foot, but I will fish this with a leader as short as 1 foot. I like to start with 3 foot, that way if you want to retie it a couple times in a day, you don't have to tie several different knots. You can also use this exact same rod and reel setup for small hair jigs and spy baits. Now let's jump up on the front deck and start fishing the bait. Now there are 2 main ways that I fish this bait, and they are actually on completely different sides of the spectrum. One is extremely slow and the other one is extremely fast. Now, when I fish it very slow versus very fast, there's no right or wrong in this situation. You really just have to let the fish tell you what they like. And so anytime I think that the bass could bite this bait, I'm going to fish this in both ways, and I'm just gonna see which one the bass prefer, which one I'm getting more bites. To fish it slow, extremely simple. I'm gonna cast this bait out. I'm gonna keep my rod at about 10 o'clock, and I'm going to slowly reel this bait. I mean, just slow across the top of the surface. It's a very slow, steady retrieve. I'm really not doing anything to the bait at all. And so a lot of times when you're fishing it this way, you'll see those fish just kind of hit it like a normal topwater, where they just kind of come up and hit the bait. Now, although that's a very fun way to catch them, I think the best way to catch them on this bait is by fishing it really, really fast. And this is something that I do a lot. And the reason that I even started doing this was because I would see these minnows that would literally just skip across the water. And I'm sure if you have fished a lot, you see this same thing where they just kind of skip across the water, and a lot of times bass are chasing those fish. So I'm trying to mimic that movement, that skipping movement, with this bait. And so to fish it fast, very simple. Cast that bait out there, and I'm going to reel this at a medium fast pace, and I'm just kind of popping my rod very subtly, but that just makes that bait kind of just skip across the water, and it just kind of leaps out of the water, it comes back down, it shimmies. It's really going all over the place, and it really, I'm telling you, this mimics those jumping bait fish perfectly. So anytime you see those little minnows jumping across the surface, this is what you want to do. This is the bait you want to throw. And I'm telling you what, the bite when they're doing this is phenomenal, because these bass are going to chase this bait down from a ways to get it. And you will literally see a wake, like a V wake, literally following this bait for 10, 15 feet before they come up there and get it. Now, the really important thing about fishing this lure in general is the hook set. When that fish hits that bait, you just want to lean back. You don't want to jack them. You literally just kind of continue reeling and lean into them. Again, these hooks are really, really small, and you're using 10-pound braid. At least I use 10-pound braid. It doesn't take a lot of force to penetrate that hook into that fish's mouth. So just lean into them and then keep them down. I like to stick my rod down there in the water to try to keep those fish from jumping. Now, one thing that I have found with this bait is that if you kill it on the surface, it actually shoots backwards. And so every now and then I have seen it where fish are tracking this bait. You will see that V-wake behind it, but that fish doesn't end up hitting the bait. And when they are doing that, that is when I will actually kill this bait. It actually shoots back at them, and almost 9 times out of 10, that is when they get it. So just a little secret there. If you're getting those followers and they're not eating the bait, just kill it and let that bait shimmy back towards them. bam, then they'll get it. Now, if you guys like Japanese lure reviews, I did another one on a lure called the Bounty Fish, and I'm gonna leave a link for that video right here. This is another really unique topwater bait that honestly, I think it could replace your frog in a lot of situations. So I'm gonna leave a link for that video right here. You can check that out next. Comment below, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next video.